So as you get bigger, and sometimes bigger is going from 0 sales to 1 sale, or from 100,000 to 1 million, or wherever you're at and wherever you're trying to go, you're trying to organize some sort of information along the way. And so I am super excited today to talk about one of my favorite tools that really almost no one is talking about in the Amazon space. And this is not an Amazon tool, and that is Airtable. And if you've never heard of Airtable, you are missing out. And you are going to learn a crash course in this episode with Barak Almog from Seller Frame. So, Barak, thank you for joining us here on Maximizing E-commerce to talk about Airtable.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for inviting me. I like that intro. It's always surprising for me, and I literally live in Airtable. It's always surprising to me to find out business niches that don't know this tool and what they're missing. So, I
Well,
mean, it's a
well,
great opportunity here.
well, I appreciate that. So you're definitely an evangelist for Airtable, which is, just to be clear, you enjoy using Airtable and you help people with Airtable, but you don't work for Airtable.
Yeah.
But just to get into that, normally I would ask people at the beginning to tell a little bit about their background. But before we do that, just since we really teed up this Airtable thing, briefly, if I was to run into you in an elevator and we were to talk about Airtable as we went from the first floor to the eighth floor, what would you tell me Airtable
Oh
is?
boy. Well, I would probably tell you that I literally manage my life there.
Okay.
And well, Airtable, I mean, just to put it in context, is it's basically a visual data structure
Mm-hmm.
that is super flexible, and it's easy to integrate to literally any other software that has an API. And I mean, in the broader sense, that's about it. But what's so great about it is that if you take a look at it the first time, it might seem like Google Sheets or something, or Excel, but it's not. It's a way to organize your data. So it's like kind of a canvas. I guess we're on the eighth floor right now.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Uh, yeah. I when I said that I organized my entire life there, and I literally mean that, not just the business sense, not just my CRM and my expenses and stuff like that, but also stuff like books I read,
Mm.
and yeah, and my habits, and everything is laid down its data structure and is connected in the right way. So I get a 360 on everything that's happening in my life.
Wow, that's definitely, you were definitely a power user of Airtable. And
Quite
another way
ambitious.
I would kind of frame it is it kind of takes the best of all the worlds of most of the productivity tools people use, like Excel or Google Sheets, Trello, Asana. You kind of mix them all together and you can have Airtable, and it's super flexible, and you can basically create your own apps to do just about anything you want. And so let's now
Yeah.
go back in time, pre Airtable. How did you get into the whole Amazon selling world?
My first experience was, I initially, I'm a high tech person. I quit my job in 2015 and I went to travel. And then after a year of traveling in South America, I kind of came across a group of people which were something I never heard before. It was digital nomads. And this kind of led
Mm.
to a chain of events where I decided I'm going to be the same thing. Started my own Amazon business. Um, for us going forward, I did not, for a while, I was just a seller, but I wasn't the best one. I came
Mm.
with no prior knowledge or something like that. And I, I kind of I kind of messed up. I didn't build the business systematically. And so I found myself starting to work with other sellers
Mm.
to expand my income. Back then, I still managed, I mean, it was 2016, 17. I still managed everything in Google Sheets. Like, I guess a lot of sellers, same thing. And the first encounter that I had with Airtable was back when they just started. And I mean, I kind of liked it. It was visual, it was colorful, and it was an easy way for me to organize what my first system back then was, which was VA hire. I hired virtual assistant, and I needed a place to like organize all the data. And since then, it's kind of addictive. It expanded and it became it's like a infectious disease. From the VA hire, it went to become my CRM, and my expenses and the rest of the systems. I don't want to hug the microphone.
No, I gotcha. I can see you're passionate about Airtable. So help people understand. I know some people are going to watch this on YouTube. They can see us, but really more for the benefit of folks who are listening to audio, because generally more people listen to the audio version than watch it on YouTube. How would you describe Airtable? Maybe is the question.
Well, I like to think of it like a canvas, and I want to maybe try to relate it. I mean, I'm not an Amazon seller today, and I switch full time to doing automations. But I do want to relate it to systems that I know that sellers that are my customers are still using. So I mentioned that I used Airtable to organize my VA hire system, but as I hired VAs, virtual assistants for other sellers, for clients, which is what I did pretty much full time for 3 years. Many of my customers, and I imagine that many of the people that listen to us today were after a social media VA. And to help them manage that person, we created an Airtable base to oversee the work of that person. And this is something that, by the way, I'd be happy, and I don't know if you have any links, I'd be happy to share with your audience free of charge. So it's like kind of complimentary material. And this will give much more, essence to this talk. It's not going to be just some abstract description. And so this social media system, it was basically a base. Airtable, most fundamental unit is a base, which is like a database. And in that base, we had several tables, which are like Google Sheet tabs. And the major table, the one that used those sellers the most, was where the VA would plan their content ahead. And the nice thing about it is that contrary to Google Sheets, for example, Airtable is very visual. So that VA did not just, let's say that they manage their Amazon posts or Instagram. It was not just the slogan and the hashtags, but that person, the VA would actually go to Canva, create their design, and add that directly to the Airtable account. And at that specific record, the seller would be able to approve or disapprove that, that design, so that the VA knows if they should post it, fix it, or something like that. So when I said that Airtable is a canvas, it means that when I created that base that I shared with my clients, that I'm going to share with the audience here, anyone that's interested, many of my clients took it and then they were able to convert it to whatever other channels that they were using quite easily, and TikTok and I don't know, Instagram and anything else. And then they could add, or we don't, in Google Sheets, we have rows and columns, but Airtable is a database. We have records and we have fields. So they were able to add fields. So maybe in YouTube, you're going to have a retention time, which obviously in Instagram, you don't have any need for that kind of measure. So in the same sense, any one of the listeners that would want to download, would copy that base to their business, I'm imagining that they would change it to fit to their needs.
Got it. Okay, so let's pause here for a second just to unpack some of that for listeners who are not familiar with Airtable. So in Airtable, you have an account, and in your account you have also workspaces, which is, you could almost kind of think of like folders in a sense. It's probably not the best description, but within a workspace you could invite other users either to that workspace or to individual bases. And a base is almost like a spreadsheet. And then you go into the base, and then there are tabs which are the individual tables. And a table is kind of like a spreadsheet, right? And then, or sorry, like a tab in Google Sheet or like a worksheet in Excel. And then from there, you've got the columns are fields and the
Mhm.
rows are records. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I guess, I mean, if someone does not know the software, then they might think that, oh, Kevin is talking about it's basically Google Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of need to experience it to understand that it's not. There is some intersection, but the softwares cover different use cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about right.
Sorry to interrupt you there. One of the
No, no,
things I would say is took me a little time to kind of understand the power of Airtable compared to other things is a relational database,
oh yeah.
meaning you can relate different records between each other. So just total different example. Um, Outside of anything in the seller space, I use Airtable for keeping tabs on things because I'm the den leader for my son's Cub Scouts. And one of the things that's kind of hard to like equate to with a spreadsheet was like having, let's say, each child. Well, each child has at least one parent who's registered, but sometimes the second parent wants to be involved, or sometimes there's a grandparent that wants to be involved. And so what I did was I have a table that's Cub Scouts. I have a base. Sorry, the base is Cub Scouts. There's a table for children. There's a table for parents. Within that we also have the ability to connect. Let's say I have records for two parents that connect to one scout in the other table, and so they're linking back and forth. So I can click on a parent, see who else they're linked to with a scout, and then who they're linked to with a parent.
This is funny. You describe the situation in your personal life, which again, that's what makes it a canvas. You can literally use it for anything. What I do, for example, and I run an agency, automation and agency, and one of my marketing channels is through workshops. And I have a base that's dedicated for workshop, and the whole thing is automated. Now, when I have a new signee, then that person is added to that base through the form. It's Airtable is the automation on steroids. Now, I got another base which is a CRM. It's a completely different base. It's like separate entities, but they are synced. Which is actually the strongest concept for me regarding Airtable. I call it my source of truth. My data is the most updated
That's
in
a very
Airtable, and
Airtable
then if I need to
phrase.
use like, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta be honest. That for me, it was the one concept that really changed how I look at this business. And today, I take special note to not have duplicated data goes out of sync because this thing messes with your head. But what I was going to say, if you allow me to follow up with a thought, is
Yeah, go
that the
for it.
base, the workshop base sees a bunch of people, right? That they sign up for my workshops. And then the CRM, this is where I manage my contacts and my sales and my leads and everyone else that engages in my business. So my sales process. And the workshop base, which again, it's a entity, it's being synced in real time to the CRM. And then I get, and this is due to this magnificent feature that's called you mentioned the relational database. All records are being synced to each other. I get a 360 picture of each contact in my contacts list, what he bought from me, how many times he reached out, how many deals I opened for him, and how many times he showed up for my free workshops. So you can get a temperature of your, audience. And this is really beautiful. This is something that I just figured out lately. And I mean, again, this is like a lot of power. almost
Gotcha.
makes you feel that it's like magic.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things about Airtable, like now bringing it more to Amazon sellers. So I gave a personal way I've used it. You gave kind of a more way to organize like data with like a CRM. But now let's bring it into something like an Amazon seller. So I have a base where I basically just bring in all of my products. And then I have basically my whole catalog in there, but I also add things like um, not just all the stuff you might find in Amazon, but also like if I need to quickly, if there's any design elements, they can be connected to that product. Labels I could quickly pull up there. So anything that I could use for that product can be linked together in this catalog database. Now, one of the things that's cool about Airtable is it's free. Well, I should probably say freemium. So you
free.
can use some things free and then some things if depending on the size of your base. So what would be some things you would suggest sellers you as a seller they might use Airtable for? And then let's also maybe after that, which we'll come to, what they might not use Airtable for.
Right. So I can probably share a bit from my experience. And again, I worked when I was still an active seller with a lot of strong sellers. And I know that one of the things that they needed sorting out through was suppliers management. So you said that it sits in Airtable, and then for each of those products, you can connect it in real time, relational database to the supplier. Mm-hmm. And what's great about it is that one of the Airtable's strongest powers is the automations that you can integrate to it. So mm-hmm. you can have templates of emails to not just your existing suppliers, for example, request for PI, or maybe you want a sample and instructions, and everything is within. The emails are being sent from within, and the forms inside the base itself. So I mean, inventory management is definitely a big one. I had a seller that he had a lot of mess with samples, and he used Airtable account, Airtable base to organize their tests and their orders and everything like that. So I guess inventory management.
So let's pause and let's unpack inventory management here real quick. So you could, and this is something I hadn't even thought about in my own base. I could have within that product catalog base the table that has all the products, but then I could link to a supplier. So when I want to make an order, I could theoretically place the order and just say, okay, for my next order, it's going to be, these units that I'm ordering of this product and this product and this product and this product. And I could have it just templatize into like, put all that into an email that comes from me that Airtable just sends on behalf of my email host.
Absolutely. You can definitely, you can create a record for a new order, a new restocking event that you are planning, and just place all the data in the table, like what products, what items, and I don't know what kind of shipment you are going to use, how many, obviously, and then with a click of a button, and then we use Make, which was formerly called Integromat, which is like Zapier,
similar to Zapier. Yeah, for people probably more familiar with Zapier.
That's probably one of the things that I love the most about Airtable. I have buttons, and this is something that I didn't find in Google Sheets, or obviously not Excel. Easy access buttons. When I click a button, it fires up a webhook to Make, Integromat, and I basically do whatever I want. So I can have, for example, I can populate with all the data of my to-be order, and I can have an account.
Sorry, just real quick. Not everyone's familiar with the concept of a webhook. Can you give just a quick little simple example of what a webhook does?
Yeah, definitely. We all know that remote computers communicate with each other over the
Mm-hmm.
web with HTTP requests. And sorry for the geek jargon. I
Sure.
assume
So
people
the
are
internet
familiar enough.
connects to itself. Okay.
Yeah. Well, webhook is essentially a way for software to talk with each other, which are not necessarily familiar with each other's interfaces. So if Airtable wants to send a webhook, and mostly we will send a webhook. A webhook is basically just a request,
Mm-hmm.
to Integromat, which is like Zapier again, if anyone is not familiar. Basically, what we get, what Integromat does on the other side is provide an address, and then we take that address to Airtable and we
Mm-hmm.
attach it to a button. When we click that button, Airtable will send the information to make what is the information, whatever we want. And then we get that like in form of text, and we can do whatever we want with it. So we get the email address of the supplier, we get the item, how many units, and then we take it further. Send a template an email of and so on and so forth. That
Got
makes
it. So
sense. I
so
never
so
know when to stop with
basically,
these things. I like
yeah. So
word.
you can send to make or to Zapier or to whatever you want to do, say send this email or whatever the case is. You can do it natively within Airtable too, right?
You do. Airtable provides in-house a lot of functionality that you can take advantage of. You don't have to go out. You can do quite a lot within the software, within the free tier of the software. And I gotta say that they have a huge uh, set of examples. They call it Airtable Universe, so you can learn it yourself.
That's true. That's true. There is a lot of good examples. And I use it for like when I plan virtual summits to keep tabs on speakers, to keep tabs on all the work that goes into these things. Having assistants help with keeping tabs on. We have all this design elements we have to create. There's production stuff that has to be done. So all these little moving pieces that we're constantly working on, Airtable helps me keep on top of all that. So that's one of the things I really like about Airtable. And then also for sellers, they can keep tabs on like maybe if there's certain key metrics in their business, they want to keep tabs on every week could be a record, or every day could be a record, or whatever they want to do, something like that. So now let's get into what would be some things you might not want to use Airtable for if you're a seller.
Well, I got two examples. First is something that I started developing back then and I dropped it. This is not Airtable related. It was review request system back in the time when it was still kind of grayish. It's not anymore. But I mean, if you're talking about yeah, I had a base set up for it, with reviewers and rebate, and I connected it to PayPal. It was really magnificent, but then Amazon hammered down on that, so that's not a thing anymore. But I guess the strongest source of confusion is where people treat Airtable like Google Sheets. So if you need a spreadsheet, some sort of calculator, maybe you need some sort of like a dashboard within your sheet, and that Airtable won't do. A record does not know other records. You can't refer to sales. So anything that um, is like dashboard kind of thing will not do with Airtable.
Well, you can make
That
some
makes sense.
dashboards in Airtables and they have those interfaces, but to your point, it doesn't do as well with like VLOOKUPs and things like that that you
Yeah.
might use in Excel. Some people might be thinking V what? And if you don't do VLOOKUPs, then you don't have to worry about this. But there are certain things that, especially to your point, data calculation oftentimes is going to be better um, in Excel, because Excel is a spreadsheet, whereas this is a database. Now, another
Actually,
thing too
I have a
is,
better example that
yeah,
might be
go for it.
more, when I was full-time Amazon seller, I worked a lot with Asana, which I guess probably the majority of the listeners are working within some sort of task management system. So um, passing to Airtable, a lot of the stuff that we did, I found out that when you need, to keep large processes, tasks like, I don't know, inventory management, when you got systematic, right, sequential tasks that has to be executed again and again, and that task is a template, then you don't want to import that functionality to Airtable. You want to keep that in a task management system. So this is one of the things Airtable does not manage well. In Asana, you can have a conversation with your VA about each individual task. You can copy a template task. This won't do well in Airtable. So you keep that in Asana.
Gotcha. There are some types of tasks that might be better in Asana, although I would have to disagree a little bit on that one. That I like Airtable for that. Now, the one challenge I would say with Airtable is if you have multiple workspaces and multiple bases that you have assistants going into, it can be a little scattered. Now, one way around that is you could create for certain ones that they don't go into as often. Like if, certain like you create a status or something like that. And if it achieves a certain status, it sends them an email. Hey, go to this record and make this, update or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So there are some things you can do, but it can be a little scattered, whereas Asana is probably a little more organized in that regard. Now, one of the other major things I think Airtable, I would love to see it do better on is the number of records. So you can have, theoretically, you can have as many, correct me if I'm wrong, you can have as many bases as you want, but within a
There's
base.
there's a limit, but I mean, I don't know anyone that hit it. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Theoretically, yeah. Practically.
Theoretically. But within a base on the free plan, it's 2,500 rows
Yeah.
or records. So or rows is probably the better
1,200.
way for people to understand that. But even on some of the premium plans, it's like 50 or 60,000, I think, records that you can have in a base.
Yeah, and I'm actually gonna see you on that. I'm gonna raise you. Okay. And
Okay.
we had yeah, it's 50,000 for the premium, the second tier of the premium. I think it's called Pro. The
Okay.
thing is that Airtable is so packed with functionality behind the scenes that after hitting around 20 to 30,000 rows, it starts to be clunky. Takes a
Mm.
long time to search, and then the
Mm-hmm.
experience becomes gradually unusable. So, I mean, beyond 20 to 30,000, you might want to examine your use case and see if you can find a better tool for the job.
Right, exactly. So, like, if you were to say, you know what, I want to keep a daily record of my PPC performance of all my campaigns, Airtable is not going to be the right platform for that. Now, if
Definitely,
you want
no,
to say,
definitely no.
I want to keep a record by week of, my total performance or something like that, or whatever the case is, more for like KPI dashboard. So I would say, keeping kind of wrapping this up, Airtable is an excellent tool for anything you do that has to do with keeping tabs on, like, let's say your products, suppliers. I'm probably more task management than some folks might be that are in the Airtable world. You can use it for keeping tabs of things even in your personal life. You can use it for all kinds of stuff. And so uh, I would say if you ever get to a point that you're looking at the marketplace of tools out there and you're like, I really wish I could find something that could do X. If it's not, you know, hundreds of thousands of rows of data potentially, you could probably make it work in Airtable.
I would definitely start there at the very least. When they came into awareness, I think that they solved a massive pain back then. I know that I got sucked in, and like you said, I'm not affiliated in any way. Um, But now when I need to implement a new system, I'm gonna go and check if I can use Airtable for that. Um,
Yeah, I agree. And the thing I love about Airtable is it gives you a lot of functionality, a lot of flexibility. It takes a little, it's got a little bit of a learning curve, but it's also, I think, graphically nice. And you know,
yeah,
there's
very pleasing. You
you can
mentioned,
color code things pretty much the way you want. And
yeah, it's very visual, and this actually is. I mean, it got also business sense. So, like for example, if you have like a drop down in your Google Sheets, and it's all in the same color, or you maybe have to color it separately. In Airtable, you got that drop down colored. Um, it comes like a functionality in the software itself, helps you separate stuff, and
yeah,
the
awesome.
data pops into your to your eyes.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the nice things too is you can group the data, you can sort the data, you can filter the data. There's so much you can do with it. Oh, and then we didn't even get into views, which is another way of looking at data. Is you can create different views so that you can look at the data how you want within a base or within a table. So there's a lot you can do with Airtable. I would highly recommend folks if you don't have an account with Airtable, it's free. Sign up. We'll have a link in the description or in the show notes if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast. Now, for folks that wanted to follow you, Barak, and learn more about Airtable from you, where would they go?
Point, the easiest place to find me is on Facebook, and I'm absolutely open to to new contacts, answer questions, help with anything. I am I am building up a new YouTube channel and a new which will be managing Airtable, by the way.
Oh,
Um,
okay, cool. What's
it,
is that channel live?
well, it's it should be probably a conversion. It's not live yet. It's going to be a conversion from my Hebrew speaking channel, which is probably not of use to most of the people that listen to this channel. No, it's not.
We have a few Hebrew speakers that listen, but I think most
They're
of
all
our
over.
audience is native English speakers.
Yeah, but at this point, I mean, the best place to find me is just on Facebook, and just, hit me up. You have any questions? I love to talk, to help. And I'm gonna share the base that I mentioned. Social media is something that literally everyone needs, and I know it's helpful because my own clients use it. So
Got it.
yeah,
And that's something you're also doing is you're using the base to manage the social media for brands and things of that nature.
yeah, exactly,
Awesome.
exactly.
There's so much you can do with it. I know we're just kind of touching the surface. And so I highly recommend folks just sign up for an account like Barak said, they have like a and it's not like an Amazon seller thing or an e-commerce thing. It's like just about any kind of business can use Airtable. So you could use it for all kinds of stuff, but you can get a lot of the use cases that they have. And then definitely follow Barak for more ideas and sign up for his free social media base, which we will have a link to as well.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be open. You don't even need to leave an email or something like that. I just believe, in sharing what you got.
Well, good
Um,
deal.
yeah,
Good deal.
yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, this was super helpful, and hopefully this got people thinking about if they ever need a tool that could do X, there's a good chance that they could start playing around with this no code, low code automation world with tools like Airtable, tools like Make, and so highly recommend folks get in there, start playing around, and they probably will save themselves some time.
Absolutely. This is magic.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Barak.
Thank you, Kevin.